Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Here we are, the 5th of June, our first
Yeah, man.
show. Are you ready for the summer?
Can you imagine? Can you believe it's June already? That's like
No, I
it's
can't.
just I can't
We're
believe
almost
it,
halfway
man.
through 2021. We haven't completed talking about 2020 yet.
Right. I
We
know
got to
we're
we got
still
to give this year its due. 2021.
I was thinking about that yesterday. I'm sitting outside, I'm looking at the sky. It was a nice day, the sun was out. I said, wow, it's summer already.
It's
It's like
summer. It's summer. It's
it was
here.
just a
It's here,
few
baby.
months ago. We were talking about all the other crazy stuff that's going on in the world. And we're looking at how is 2021 really going to turn out? It's like we're halfway there.
Yeah.
Of course it's a mess, but I mean, but we're here,
Hey, things are
and
getting better.
things are getting better, and I'm just thankful to be alive.
Yeah. Well, we want to
Every
give go ahead. We
Go
want
on,
to
go
give a
ahead, please.
shout out to our producer, Bria.
Yes,
She is
yes,
graduating today, so congratulations, Bria.
yes.
Spending time with family, and congratulations to you and all that you've done and accomplished. And it's great.
Awesome, man.
We applaud you.
Yes, definitely, and that's my daughter, by the way. Bria is my daughter, and I'm so proud of her. She's a mom, two children. She's a wife. I'm just really happy for her because her and her family moved from Cleveland to Kansas City, Missouri. So she's basically in Missouri by herself. Like I'm here in Texas with me and my wife. We're by ourselves here, but to see us branch out across the country is
Yeah.
great. So I'm really happy for her, and she's going to go on, and I think she's going to be continuing her education some more in college. So this
She
is
has
her
her own
social,
business, so
yeah, her own
you can check
business
that
now.
out, making candles.
Yeah, we got to start doing commercials on the show, man. Where we can start advertising some businesses. Have like small little commercials.
Let's do it.
You know, let's do some things
Do it.
like
Let's
that.
do
And
it.
and for those out there listening, if you have a small business or anything and you want to be able to advertise on our show here, just go ahead and drop us a comment and give us a link,
It's a
and
good
we'd be
idea.
happy to put you on and even have you interview on one of our shows. 'Cause that's one thing we like to do also is to interview small businesses and
Yes.
let people
Yes, for
know
sure. For
what's
sure.
out there because it's so many small businesses out there that what happens is that they get left behind.
Yep.
They don't have may not have the big income to get this big store, but they're still doing things for the community. They're doing things in their state. You can still ship things across the country. Like when I see someone I know that has a small business, I support them right off the rip.
Mhm.
I just bought some more barbecue sauce from. You remember Darrin
From
Carter
our
we
friend
had on?
Darrin Carter. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
I
been on
bought
this
some
show
of
a few times.
yeah,
Yeah.
I bought some of his barbecue sauce. Another friend, he does
But you have
rubs.
you have a small business too, so we
Yes,
haven't talked about that. How's it going with your
going
soap?
good. Actually, I kind of slowed down a little bit. I'm going to get back revving it back up. I still got quite a bit of stock left, and but my advertisement slowed down. I think more so us really still fine tuning the show a little bit kind of took me away from it a little bit. But I still have my stock of exotic earth soap. I'm still making it, and I'll be happy to. I gotta actually send you some so you can try it out.
No,
You haven't tried
I'm
out?
gonna order some.
You gonna order some? Okay, great,
Order some from
awesome.
you.
That'd be awesome.
Um,
So
but yeah, Greg, welcome this morning, and
yes.
good to see you this morning.
So
We have a
today,
great show on today. We have a great show. We actually have a title for this show. Go ahead.
no, I was saying is
There it is.
I was gonna bring it out there that we're gonna have a great show today. One of the things that's been on my heart that I don't know is maybe because I've seen people go through drug addiction. I've always had a heart or a passion to see people come out of that. Not that I was ever in that position, but for some reason my heart went out to those that were. I had like while others people may have downed somebody or talked bad about somebody, or even if they did something wrong in the midst of being an addict, I always felt like, man, there's so much potential in that person
Hmm.
that this is blocking them. And it's like almost you can see that potential. And then when I started teaching, I saw young people go through it.
Mm,
When I was in high school, I'm sure there were people I knew that did drugs in high school. But when I became a teacher, an adult, and I saw my students or other students, I mean, go through things, it really kind of shook me because I'm actually watching this. You could see the decline in a person.
yeah.
And it
Mm.
was just, man, I mean, I had to actually literally, it was a friend of mine. I'm not sure what happened to him, but he passed out on Euclid Avenue at the bus stop
Oh,
downtown. And another student got him to the school with me. And it was right near the time we were closing up. And I'm like, it was an after school program for arts. And there was nobody to be with this young man. And his mom wasn't available at the time. And so we called the paramedics and they were like, "Who's going to be who's going to be an adult that's going to go with this man?" I was the
okay.
one who had to ride in
Okay.
the ambulance with him to the
Wow.
hospital,
Mm,
and I stayed with him in the emergency room until his mom came.
okay.
And it really touched me, because this kid was basically whatever he was using, he was by himself. At this time, he felt by himself.
Hmm.
And I got to be there for him. And there's tons of
There's
stories like that,
there's
man.
addiction issues and people who have struggled with substance abuse and addiction cuts across all income, all areas of the
Yeah,
country, large cities, small towns, rural areas, all
yeah,
economic situations. And so it's really everyone's problem, everyone's issue. And I
yeah,
know that probably everyone listening to this um, has known someone who has had a problem or an issue or
yeah,
struggled with this. Um, this year, this past year, there has been a very dramatic increase
yeah,
in first time um, addictions
yeah.
and people who have unfortunately started the habit of being in substance abuse. The 13% rise, was that
Yeah,
it's 13
13,
point?
13.3% increase in
0.3% increase in the
new
last
drug
year
users.
since the pandemic's happened.
Yeah,
You know, we have talked about it here and there, but we haven't
yeah,
really focused on it necessarily until today. But you know, a lot of people, of course, have suffered from isolation, depression, anxiety.
yeah,
The economic situations of a lot of people has added to their stress, and a lot of people
yeah,
have gone to substances to help them try and cope.
yeah,
And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are struggling right now.
yeah.
And so there's
And
been a dramatic rise. And so we have a panel on this morning. We have some counselors, people who have worked in counseling before. We have some people who are coming out in recovery. And we have some guests this morning are to talk about their experiences. And
yeah,
hopefully, our hope is with this show that there's somebody out there that hears this. Maybe it's just a little bit of the show and can go and seek aid from somebody, from a counselor,
yeah,
and be it AA or a place, a 12-step program,
yeah,
something out there for them. There is resources out there. We're going to help you and guide you to find those resources
yeah,
and get you the help that you need
yeah.
for yourself, for your family, to have a healthier lifestyle. So that's our goal for today.
Okay, okay. You ready to get started, man?
Yeah.
Let's do.
One of
Let's
our
come
first
on.
panelists is Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Old Guy Greg is here. But this is what he decided to say about himself, that he's Mr. Old Guy. So,
Yeah,
Actually, that's a tribute to my grandparents.
your grandpa.
okay.
My grandfathers always said, "You must think I don't know nothing because I'm so old." He
Right.
said, I didn't get to be this old not knowing nothing. So now when I talk
I
to
like
the
that.
youth,
Yeah.
I tell them I'm Mr. Old Guy, don't know nothing. You know,
Ah,
it kind of takes the confrontation away and puts a little levity into the
Right.
situation. So
well,
that's why I'm Mr. Old Guy, because I don't
I
know
should.
nothing, but I will tell you what I do know. Recovery is possible. You
And
can
Yeah.
by the
stop
way, so
using, lose the desire to use, and find a way to live.
So let me ask you this question because we're gonna try to do like we're gonna probably bring everybody in, get a little introduction, but probably ask the questions as a group so we can go like a little round table. But um, how long were you using
I started using, say, in my teens.
teens?
Um,
Okay.
sipping beers, sneaking a drink, tasting here and there with
Yeah.
family on reunions and stuff like that. Um, by the time I was 30, um, I was just off the hook. I did not like who I became,
Got you.
and
Yeah.
and so my clean date, the last time that I stopped using was May 28th, 1986.
Awesome.
So if
Yeah.
you add that up, I got about 35 years alcohol and
that's
drug free.
that's spectacular.
That is awesome,
Congratulations to
Greg.
you
That is
and
awesome.
your strength of character. By the way,
Yeah.
this is his idea for the title of the show. So thank you for
Yeah.
that, Greg.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Everybody, there must be hope.
Yeah.
Even this country with what we're going through, uh, trying to cover it up or pretend like it's not the way it is not going to help you if
Yep.
you have an addiction problem. Because you
Right.
have to face things straight on and you have to be honest.
Right. Right.
There's no shame in having the problem. The shame
Right.
is not trying to get help.
Right. That's awesome.
So
Want to
Greg
bring
is
up?
also a Cleveland person.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Yes,
Die-hard
sir.
Browns fan.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I'm
sir.
gonna.
I
My
think.
dad's been buying tickets since 1958.
Wow,
Here we go. We're gonna bring
man.
up Marcy and introduce Marcy to the world. How
Good
you
morning,
doing,
Hey,
Marcy.
Marcy?
Hey,
Morning.
How you doing,
hey,
Marcy?
good.
Good. It's great to see you. Great to see you.
You too.
Man, so
Even though I do not remember you from high school, and that's so unlike me. So unlike
oh,
me.
Hey,
But
I
John,
remember you, Marcy. I
John
remember you.
remembers you.
does he? Yeah. Hey, so we were just asking before we get into all our major questions. We just asking you like, when did you start using, and what was your date of being clean?
When I was 14, I tried it at 13, and
Wow.
then a little bit at 14, alcohol,
Hmm.
and regular on the weekends at 15.
Wow.
And then I tried marijuana handful, dozenful of times, maybe a little bit more. I can't remember. It was so long ago. That was like 1985. But then I couldn't handle my alcohol. I was always passing out, puking, whatnot. And believe me, I was a chick drinks, and it's like nothing even hard. And I still couldn't even handle that.
Right.
I believe I had a real allergy to it.
Okay.
And so once I discovered marijuana, because my brothers were selling it, and then, I was like, yeah, I'm not puking, I'm not passing out, even though, I was high, get the munchies and fall asleep, but you know what I mean?
Right.
But that I did that daily from 18, 19 for about a good 20 years. And then an ex-boyfriend, we were together 6 years, and he was using cocaine, and that's what we always fought about. And I always thought I was better than, like, I knew nothing at 18. I thought I could be a savior. Like, I was totally naive and clueless. When I came into AA, like when I was serious about it in 2007, I said, damn, I was an addict. I didn't want to look at myself.
Right.
And I was trying to focus on him because I didn't want to focus on myself. Do you get that?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So what was your clean date? When did you get clean?
It's been 3 years, December 21st.
Awesome. I'm so happy for you.
2018.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm so happy for you.
Congratulations.
I am so happy too. The gentleman that's from Cleveland,
Yes.
that has 35 years.
Yes.
Listen, I'm going through a situation with my brother. Have you ever done crack?
Yes.
Oh my, is it possible to get your information? He needs help so bad. For him to reach out to me is huge, but he messed up last night. Me and his friend went over there. We were crying. I was crying so hard because the fentanyl, I thought he was dead, but he doesn't answer. And I know me and my brother know him. My baby brother, Todd, knows him better than me because they're closer. But is it possible I could get your number or something that he could reach out to you? He needs help bad. He's addicted to women as well. And I know he's got no, seriously, like even
we have to tackle it one problem at a time.
Yeah.
And it has to start with the not using.
I'll make sure you get his information, Marz.
Yeah, I will talk.
We'll work that out.
I will talk with him, and we can work some things out. But he has to have the willingness to reach out. If he came back and he called, then you encourage that. And you applaud that, and you allow him to feel good and understand that he only did what was normal for him to do. Not using for an addict is abnormal behavior.
Exactly, because past traumas and not knowing how to cope with stuff. Right. And untreated ADHD can lead to substance abuse, which he's hyperactive.
Right. But there's so many things that intersect. So many points of intersectionality, you have to start with the not using.
Yeah.
Right.
Has to start with the not using.
Let's bring on some more of our guests.
Yeah, we're going to bring in John right now.
Get everyone in.
Hey, John, what's going on, buddy? Your mic is
muted, John.
You muted.
I do this for a living. You think I'd know better?
Yeah. So, man. So as you heard, so when did you start, man?
I actually didn't start anything until I was 21. I was pretty much straight edge all through high school. I was even in like punk bands, and I never touched anything.
Yeah.
I was actually I have a lot of family that has a lot of history of substance abuse. I stayed away from it, but 21, I started, drinking, just very, very slowly, casually. I didn't immediately start abusing. It was kind of it was kind of a slow progression, but I was in the music business in my early 20s, and that's when I started. It's just those people never grow up. You got people that are well into their 50s or 60s and still acting like they're 20 and partying like they're 20. I mean, entertainment business people don't grow up really. It's like what I always used to call entertainment business Neverland. Just, and then I went back to school. I quit that because I decided I didn't want to do that. Then I went into the film industry, and it's the same thing. So, and I just kind of enjoyed the party and kept going too long, and then it just kind of caught up with me, and then
Right,
It
right.
became one by the time I was probably about 28, 27. It already was. Took me I was pretty much heavy into it.
I want to thank everyone for being so brave and forthcoming in your stories and being on here. So thank you.
So what was your clean date, John?
That's kind of hard to say because I went through some really severe withdrawals, and so that first 2 weeks it's kind of, I don't know, and I think so. It's around between May 23rd and I think is May 21st, 22nd is when I quit cold turkey.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I started going through withdrawals, and I think I did have one drink, so it's kind of blurry.
Yeah.
I think it's about May 20th, 21st, somewhere around there, roughly.
Okay.
I unfortunately don't know my actual hard date.
Right, but I know one thing about John is that I was there when you stopped smoking cigarettes.
That's true. You were.
I watched you, and I saw that. I watched this guy just stop, and he announced it, and it was like we don't even think about it no more, And so I'm proud of him, man, because he's told me his story, and then when I saw this part of it, because he said this is what I want to quit next, and he did it, and I watched him do it, and this is like recent, so.
Oh wow! I believe in.
Go ahead, Marcy. What were you saying?
I believe in no coincidences with God, because it was easier for me to quit drugs and cigarettes, and this. I smoked during my pregnancy. They were just happy I wasn't doing drugs. They didn't want to force the both of them together because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So this nicotine hits your dopamine receptors. Not as much as like meth and other stimulants, but it still hits it. And this is mine. And I believe in no coincidences. I was meant to hear this today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I need to quit.
So how were you guys introduced to drugs? Like anybody, any one of you all can go. Like how were you introduced to using drugs?
Friends.
Friends?
And brothers.
And brothers. So you had it from a family, because you said your brother sold marijuana. So that was like both of them. Yeah. So
and crack and anything, any drug.
Wow. So that's like really close.
And Todd started when he was 11 smoking crack.
Wow.
Well,
it's from trauma. It's from trauma.
Yeah.
My dad leaving.
We have a couple of other guests. I want to bring them on here. So,
do you want to bring them up now, or you want to after you interview the panel? You want to bring them up now or afterwards?
Let's bring them in now, and then we can continue the conversation. So,
okay, go ahead.
We have Andrew Nolan. Andrew lives in my town here of Galion, Ohio, north central Ohio, and Andrew has had a very interesting career, and he has a career in corrections.
19 years, was it?
Yes, 19 years, and so he has worked in a gang task force. He currently works as a substance abuse counselor. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm glad.
And I want to say that he was also a small business owner, so he's done a lot of interesting and cool things over his career. So
awesome.
Thank you for being here, brother.
Yep, thank you for having me on. That's interesting that you guys talked about the small business thing at the opening. And I thought to myself, man, I wish I would have had this shout out when I had my business running. So
I spent a lot of time in his shop, so yeah.
So what made you go into the for substance abuse help, like to be a person to help people with substance abuse? What made you want to go into that part of it?
Well, after being in corrections for so many years, I saw the majority of the inmates that we had were substance use abusers.
Yeah.
And I started getting into the psychology field. I got a master's in forensic psychology. So once I got that, I was able to get my CDCA after that, which is Chemical Dependency Counselor's Assistant Certificate.
Okay.
After I left the state, that's the job I started to work on. Once I started the business and got it going, then I started working on becoming a substance use counselor.
Got you. That's awesome. And
we have one more.
Ash. Yeah.
We have Ash Welch. This is another brother of mine that lives here in town, and Reverend Ash Welch. But he's just Ash or Ashwin. He's currently studying to be a pilot. And, he's a fellow minister in town, and so he's worked in ministry for a number of years. But he also has professional training in substance abuse counseling. So
Okay.
I invited him on the show, and I thought of him as well as Andrew to have them on here. So welcome. And he is from India, historically, and via Louisiana as well. And you've ridden tigers, apparently.
Yeah, that's the amazing part. That's the first man I've ever met that actually rode on a tiger. Where was this at, Ash? Where did you ride a tiger at?
Yeah, so I was 4 years old, and it was in India, and it belonged to the president of India. It was a pet tiger, about a yearling.
Wow.
And since I was 4 years old, I was light enough that the handler could put me on his back.
You were tight with the president of India.
Well, he asked me to sit on his lap, and I said, no, I'm too busy riding the tiger. True story. And
So
my parents
do you
never let me
listen to
forget
it, like
that.
at 4 years old? Because you were 4 years old, man.
Yeah.
Do you remember
and
that?
my parents never let me forget. I turned down the president of India.
Okay.
Oh wow, that's awesome though. That's a great story though. Do you have any pictures of that?
Yeah, and ever since then, my life has been riding a tiger, metaphorically speaking. It's been an amazing ride. I actually got my pilot's license in 1981, and then I went to seminary that had a master's degree in drug and alcohol abuse counseling. Okay. And that was going to be my field of choice after working as a psychologist in India and in a sheltered workshop in Ohio for many years, and a degree, bachelor's in psychology. I decided to go into substance abuse counseling. But after serving that field for a couple of years, my life took a different turn and I became a local pastor. But ever since then, you know, the experiences working with people and even being a part of the 12-step program for many years. I started in that in 1989. And it's just every year it comes along my way, and I have to send them to people like Andrew and say, hey, you need the help that I can't give you completely, but I can get you started on the way. So that's what I've been doing since.
I want to give a shout out.
I have a question for the panel.
I want to give a shout out first to Willie Maccabee Langford Sr.
Yes.
He's been sober since 2009, been clean since 2009. He had mentioned he wanted to get on the show. I think it's kind of late now because we already got started with our panel. But we're definitely going to have Willie on at another time. I know we've discussed before getting him on the show, so we're going to try to get him on the show again one day and get a good interview with him.
Messaging him in the background here.
Yeah.
You mentioned 12-step. I wanted to know from our panel if any of you have had experiences with 12-step. Have you been a part of a 12-step group? Did it help you in your recovery?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay. No. Okay.
Yes.
I'm kind of one of the anomalies, I guess, in the sober world.
That's all right.
Not necessarily. That's the wrong way to look at it.
The
ability to come to a level of acceptance of what the problem is, the help of a 12-step program, and the camaraderie that you get because of the isolation at the end of your road is definitely an assistance to starting the process. Now, some people have a different path in the process, so that's why there's so many different 12-step programs that are up now, but some people can do it without a 12-step program, but it comes not with doing it alone. You have to be involved with people that are trying to do the same thing some kind of way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for you, Jonathan, was it through one-on-one counseling or how did you get the help that you needed? If you would like to say that.
Yeah, I don't see. That's the thing. I honestly, I just woke up one day and I'm sick of being the way I was. And so I just quit cold turkey. I'm stubborn, and so I quit it, and I went through severe withdrawals. I was just, I drank alcohol heavily. That was my drug of choice. I was ignorant. I didn't realize how dangerous that was. To quit cold turkey, I was drinking, I was going through a handle of whiskey every other day, and I could drink 24 beers in the evening and still keep going. I was heavy drinker.
Yeah.
By God's grace, you're still here because they recommend
100%.
detoxing. They recommend detoxing. My boyfriend's sponsor did the same thing, locked himself up in the basement and went because he was severe alcohol. and he's like 60 something now, and COPD, and still smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day on oxygen 24/7. But he went in his basement, and I forget, because we've known him since 2007, but he detoxed from alcohol. But yeah, it's very dangerous, because alcohol and heroin your body physically needs.
Yeah.
Right.
The other ones are just, we think we need them.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you're that far into those two, it's, always recommended. But what I learned in my peer support training, that not everybody, we have to find our own recovery. Because some people have literally told me, because more and more in AA, they're talking about drugs, unless you're at an old timers meeting where they are real strict. But I was told, because people have literally told me that meetings trigger them. So obviously meetings aren't good for them for their recovery. But for me, I needed it in the beginning to get an understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But everybody's different. What worked for me may not work for you.
Yeah.
We got to find our own recovery.
What was that you was going to say? I said John was about to say something earlier.
Well, I didn't get to really finish answering your question.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, Marcy. It's not a big deal. We're all just open discussion. It's cool.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I have self-detoxed, and when I did end up going into detox, because I ended up in the hospital, and then they put me into a detox program. That was a nightmare. I was basically locked up, and so I did get a little help there, but I was out of my mind. I was hallucinating, auditorial and visual hallucinations. There was demons coming at me. The full thing. It was very heavily, and those lasted 2 weeks. I didn't sleep. I got about 4 hours of sleep in 8 days.
Wow.
So I was in detoxing and that was when I was like, why would I ever go back to this?
Yeah.
And then so I gave myself a pep talk. I said, you're done, and you'll never do this again, and your life will never be the same. You've already got this far. And I kept telling myself that, and that was it. And then when I got out of detox, I had good insurance, and they recommended me go to rehab. So I ended up spending about 33 days in a rehabilitation center in California. I was very, very lucky of that. Didn't have to pay for it. I did do like the 12. I did do AA meetings there. We did, it was every day basically of that. And I saw the people coming in and out of that system. There was people, and there was the 4th or 5th time, and I said, you're not gonna be that. I was like, dude, I'm 30 at the time. I was like just in my 30s, and I was like, I do not want this to be my life. I said, and then they were like, the smart recommendations: change your lifestyle, change your friends when you go back. You can't do that. But one of the first things I did is I went to a bar with my friends. Because I was like, you're going to be in this environment. There's beer everywhere. There's alcohol everywhere. Everybody drinks. Yeah. And so I put myself in the middle of it, and I just never wanted it again. I can go out to bars still with friends, and I never get tempted. I can even leave alcohol in the house now for company, and I don't ever touch it or even think about it. So my path was different, but I guess my stubbornness, I just saw the people around me in and out of that system, and I said, dude.
Good you have going to happen for that,
Good for you,
Andrew. You had something to say in regards to in response to what Jonathan was talking about here. Go ahead, Andrew.
A lot of people don't realize that those that are working as addiction counselors were in active addiction at some point in their life too.
Yeah, that's what was going to be.
I was grateful for those people.
A question for y'all.
Yeah.
So I was an alcoholic. Started drinking at the age of 12, and I didn't stop drinking until my daughter, Cassie, which Darrin knows, she was 2 years old, and I woke up from a night of partying, and that morning I saw Cassie bouncing from empty beer bottle to empty beer bottle, drinking beers.
That
was what we call our aha moment. Just like Jonathan had his aha moment, he was done, and so I began the process of not drinking again. Now I did have a drink with a friend of mine that came back from basic, kind of peer pressure me into having a drink with them. It's a funny story, because we were playing pool at the Amvets here in town, and they kept telling me, have a beer. I said, no, I pass. I'm trying to quit. He's like, listen, just have one celebration of me coming back from basic training. I said, all right, that's cool. So halfway through the night, everybody realized that their beers were all missing, and I was a happy little camper.
Wow. You
Yeah.
think about that. You think about your early, like the things that influenced you to these things. I know, like for me, my household, you know, my parents drank, my mom, you know, dad, and family gatherings, you see people drinking. And I think I probably had my first drink. I was like 8th grade, maybe. And I snuck some out of my parents' liquor cabinet. And I remember going to school. We were in high school. You know, you would sneak liquor on the bus, you know, the school bus going to school, you know. And you think about it, like, I'm never going to be that person that drinks a lot. But I don't know. To this day, I don't know if I was ever a heavy drinker or not. I never thought I was. But I remember when you think back, you say, well, I had a drink at this occasion, or I had a drink here. But my daughter kind of brought it to my attention when she was in 1st grade. And they had, remember the DARE program in schools?
Yes.
And my daughter,
Oh, yeah.
she was in 1st grade, and she came home one day and she was saying how they were talking about, you know, parents drinking at home. And she said, Daddy, you always drink.
Oh.
And I was like, really? You know, it like hit me like that. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And so at that point, I didn't have a drink for like 13 years. And like I said, I never looked at it as but it's what your kids see. And I had to question myself, was I in denial of something? Okay. Or was it that she saw something that, you know, kids pick up? And I might have a drink now where I might have like a wine at dinner or something, but, you know, it's something that just never really grabbed me like that. But it caught my attention then that said I need to stop. And it was the story behind that made it really impactful for me was that it was maybe a week after she had said that we had a very bad car accident. And she was in the car. It was me and her in the car. And it was my fault. And I wasn't drinking. But I was thinking, what if I had alcohol in my system?
That was your aha moment, maybe? Yeah.
It was a really big moment because it made me think, wow, she warned me. Yeah. I stopped. What if I had? Yeah. Where would have been the outcome of that? Because my car was totaled from this accident. Wow. Got hit by a truck, and it was like all horrible. But going on with the rest of our panel.
Does anyone else have like an aha moment? There's like a time when it just was like, yeah, I need to do something different with my life.
For me, it was a lot more subtle, but I wanted to say something. Somebody in the chat was talking about.
Yeah, they were talking about the principles of
the
AA.
Principles.
I wanted to get to that.
What I want to help the newer members understand that because everyone has their process, we don't recommend any one program over another program, and we're not here to teach the principles. They want you to go to the meetings and get the literature and read it in order to come to the understanding of it. But we want to be as inclusive as possible, because still the most important person that's watching this is the one that doesn't know that there's a way out. There's a way out. My aha moment was 100%. About 2 years long, when I knew I didn't like who I had become, but I didn't think there was a way out of it. And that aha moment, if I tell you about it, you'd be surprised that the night that I was going to drive into Lake Erie was the same night that I got on and called this helpline that I'd been listening to for the last 2 months. And they had me on hold, and I sat on hold and drove myself to treatment. That's my personal process. And people have to understand that though we do things corporately together, our stories are individual and important, because it's going to help someone who's going through it now that fits the exact mold of what you went through. And that's why we have to have things like that.
Marcy, was there a moment for you that you were like, aha?
Well, yeah, it was in 2007. Boyfriend's mom passed. We spent over $100,000 in crack. And then I took out 35,000. I had my PERS because I typed psyche evals for 14 years, and that's when I realized how messed up I was by typing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like that, oh my God. And I was so fixated on like, why am I the way I am? I needed a diagnosis, but now I know today not to define yourself by your diagnosis. It's been a journey, to say. Well, anyways, my aha moment was I just got down on my knees and I cried out and begged God. I called the AA hotline number. They sent a lady over. She took me to another lady's house. I was on 93rd and St. Clair. Spent the night at the lady's house. Didn't even know her.
Wow.
We slept in the same bed. I mean, this woman she helped me so much, and she was my sponsor at one time. But anyways, that was my aha moment. And guess what? I was 2 weeks pregnant and didn't know it.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
And the lady, my friend ended up taking me to a shelter, the Edna House, the other place, the other treatment place. Well, I ended up getting into the Edna House. I found out a month into Edna House I was pregnant. And I'm just going to be honest, I had 2 previous abortions because I didn't want to have a crack addicted baby. I never thought I would do that in my life. I always thought, I would never do that. But you can't say something until you're in that situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just honest about it because I believe it's like an individual situation. Yeah. For me, I knew I wasn't done using, and I'm like, how am I going to it's hard enough raising a child being sober. How am I going to do it how am I still going to do it while I'm using?
Yeah.
So even though like I didn't really feel any guilt about what I did, I felt I made the right decision. And believe me, I've repented more than once to God about that, how sorry I am, but he knows my heart.
Yeah.
And I know he forgave me.
Yeah. Ash, you had a comment?
Go ahead, Ash.
Yeah, actually, kind of bringing all of these together, Marcy, you used the D word right there, the capital G-O-D, God.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on some of what Jonathan said, Greg, Andrew, all of you. In my years of working with people, each one has come to their aha moment in a different way. Some of them it's taken more than once. And years ago, when I was starting out in the field, it's been more than 30 years ago, I was told that it takes about 11 tries for a smoker to quit nicotine. It takes about 10 tries for an alcohol addict to quit the alcohol. And, that was averages 30 years ago. I don't know what the statistics are today. Yeah. But Darrin, you opened up with statistics. And it may be very different or it may be the same today as well. But I can tell you some of the good news is that, well, like, for example, my own aha moment came when I discovered my son had a problem. And I discovered it was the same problem that I had and continued to have.
Generational
I said,
trauma.
I need to get help for it. Yeah. But it's generational in a reverse sense.
Right.
Because after my son started getting his treatment, I went to get treatment. And for me, the treatment started with the AA program.
Okay.
But it didn't stay with that because 3 years later, it wasn't enough for me. Wow. And then I had to go to a different program that was based on AA and so on. It went in other ways. But ultimately, it came to realizing that maybe I had a God-shaped hole in my heart and nothing could fill it. Not drugs or alcohol or the addictions for excitement. Nothing could fill it but God. And so that's, part of it. But, in all these years of working with people, that has only worked for 2 that I know of, to point out they have a God-shaped hole. But for one of them, Colin was a hard crack addict, and he had lost his girlfriend and his daughter because of that. And he had lost his job because of that. He'd lost his college education, didn't finish college because of that. And eventually his grandmother brought him kicking and screaming to see me. And I pointed out, hey, man, you've got a God-shaped hole. The only reason I said that to him was because I realized that as a child, he had a God connection with church and Sunday school and his family. Okay. And so I was able to use that to his advantage to find him, to get to a Christian treatment center in California. And there he got healing and eventually ended up working for a halfway house. We're talking about stories of hope. For him, it was incredible to come back 3 years later to my church and stand before the congregation. He said, Pastor, I've got to give my story. He called it his story. And it turned into a testimony. It turned into a story of how he found redemption and he found healing. And, in that story, he told people, quite honestly, I didn't want to get cured until I realized I had a God-shaped hole. That's the phrase that connected with him. But you know, it doesn't connect with everybody. Then there was the hairdresser, my wife's hairdresser, and she's told my wife about her drinking pattern, heavy drinking. She couldn't exist without the alcohol. She had to start the day with a couple of shots. And my wife said, you know what, maybe you need to talk to my husband. He's got more experience in this than you do. Yeah. And she ended up moving in with us and for 14 days. And her husband came and lived with us for the last 4 of those days. But that wasn't enough for her. Right. 2 years later, she went back on the alcohol. But you know what? After that, she found help again. We had moved from the area. And today she's been clean and sober for 6 years. So these are the stories of hope. Great. Recovery is always possible. Yeah. And it may not be the same kind of recovery. And Jonathan, I know my father-in-law quit cold turkey like you did. And he went through the withdrawal and all that, just locking himself in the basement. And, you know, he was able to do that, but it takes a very strong mind to be able to do that. Not all of us have strong minds. Exactly. Not all of us have the discipline to do that. But it takes whatever it takes. I encourage people to find the exact method that'll get you clean and sober and stick with it long enough to wipe out the effects of the alcohol, drugs, whatever it is.
I think that the biggest thing about getting off of your substance, I think that what was scary for me is like, I couldn't imagine my life without it. It becomes like a loved one, you know? And I think that that's the hardest thing for people. It's like, I don't know. It's like giving up a loved one. It's the best way to put it. It's like saying goodbye to a companion of yours that you've had, that you've held very, very close, closer than you kept your family, closer than you kept your job. It was number one. It was number one in your life for so long. And to tell somebody to go give that up, it's the scariest thing. And that's hard to explain to somebody who's not an addict when they're like, just quit. It's like, you don't get it, man. Yeah, exactly. I want to. We all want to quit. Yeah, but it's the best way to put it. It's like give up your favorite pet you've ever had, like somebody you know, because it takes precedent over everything. When you're that deep in addiction, nothing else is important. Everything is you're thinking about your next fix. When you're doing your fix, I want more of this fix. So you got to tell people. What I've learned is like, it's possible because you weren't always an addict, you know, like that's what I told myself. You know, because I couldn't sleep without it. I didn't think I could, you know, meet women without it. I didn't think that I could have friends without it, go have a social life without it. But I was like, wait, you had all of those things before the addiction. In fact, you know, you were better with all those things. And so it's, you know, it's like getting rid of a bad girlfriend. It's like, okay, I love her and I can't imagine being without her, but I'm like, wait, my life was so much better without her before. And you just got to get into that mentality that like but that's the hardest thing, I think, for people. It was for me, and I think everybody I've talked to, it's the same thing, you know. Yeah.
And Andrew, you had a point about the goodbye letter.
There's a phrase that is used in the recovery field, married to the bottle. That's a phrase that is applied to alcoholics often. But once a person finds recovery, they often find that their support systems that kept them in their addictions begin to disappear. They might go through a divorce, or they might lose their significant other because that person wants to continue to use. And when I encounter that kind of a feeling that I'm going to lose everything, not just the addiction, then I always tell them, but what's on the other side is so much better, and you'll get it all back and more than that. There's a book in the Bible called the Book of Job, and it talks about how Job lost everything, his wife, his children, he lost his farmland, he lost his wealth, he lost everything, but at the end he gets everything back. Right. And he gets double the number of cows and donkeys he had before. He gets double the number of children he had before, and he gets double the number of wives. No, that didn't happen in the story. He just had one wife at the end, but he gets it all back at the end. And I try to tell people, you know what, you can't see the future, it's ahead of you, but you have to trust in the present. Yeah. Yes. And that'll get you
one of the things that one of the things that I have to share is the hope of where I am right now. My spiritual journey started with recovery from addiction. My spiritual journey was that I was not going to be involved with religion or any of these institutions that just wanted my money.
Right.
10 years clean, 19 years on my job. I had to take custody of my 3-month-old daughter. There's no help for men with single parent situations. My daughter's now 26. I have my first grandson. I'm an elder in the Urban Mennonite Church. There are people that trust my perspective just because they trust in God.
Okay.
Right.
And I'm the one that was hanging out on 55th Street and bouncing from here to there and chasing women and doing all kind of other stuff. God can change anyone, but we
Yes, he
have to
can.
go through our journey. We
Yeah.
have to understand that at some point you have to get connected with that God hole, because when you try to fill it with money, or you try to fill it with drugs, or you try to fill it with women or whatever, it's not going to work. But you have the right to your own understanding of God. You don't have to have mine. And people need to understand they were created without a choice in the matter. So it doesn't matter if you're black, white, red, yellow, purple, green. You are who you are because God said, I want you to glorify me. And
we chose our life, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
I wanted to get to the Andy had a comment here in our private chat about goodbye letters. Can you talk a little bit about that, Andrew, about the concept of a goodbye letter?
Yeah, whenever someone's going through intensive outpatient treatment programs, towards the end of their treatment, when they're finishing up their groups, one of the last days, we have them prepare a goodbye letter to their drug. And it's essentially what Jonathan was talking about, was that you're saying goodbye to a loved one, essentially. You're feeling like it's a loved one. So in that letter, we have them reflect on their past and what the drug meant to them, what the drug did to them, and then tell that drug, it's time to go. It's time for me to move on. And it's always a heartbreaking. Everybody ends up in tears, and it's a lovely moment at sometimes.
I think I've done about 3.
When you're talking about like like a loved one being lost, I know that from me seeing other people go through it, real relationships are destroyed during these times of going through addiction issues.
Yep.
And I want to ask, like, what was that like for you all? What relationships did you ruin, or did you like mess up, or has those relationships been repaired?
If you're comfortable talking about it.
If you're comfortable talking about it. Was that repaired? Because for somebody out there listening, they're dealing with it right now. And sometimes people feel there's no hope in rekindling that relationship with somebody, whether it's a parent or a sibling. But there's always that hope that you can restore that relationship, because we all are people. We all make mistakes, and we all have to have a heart of forgiveness. So if you don't mind talking about that, I think it would be great for someone that's dealing with it right now.
I was blessed. I burned bridges and that, but my family always stuck by me. My best friends have always stuck by me, even though I put them to the curb for a few years. Yeah. We all got together last week for my birthday, and it was great. And the only one I have a problem with is with my dad. I don't have a relationship with him. And it's a long story, but it doesn't even have to do with my addiction. It has to do with him choosing his girlfriend, who's now his wife, over me. He believed her over me, and I carried that resentment for over 20 years, and I never knew that resentment was eating at me and hurting me, and he's going on probably not thinking twice and living his life, and it took that long for me to learn that.
Okay.
The resentments hurt ourselves. They don't hurt the other person.
Right. That makes sense.
I think that everything gets better when you're sober. So I just tell everybody, it's like everything sounds like it'll fall. Nothing will get worse. Nothing gets worse. If the relationships don't get repaired, they weren't going to get repaired anyways.
Exactly.
So, like, the people who love you and will stand by you will be by you. And sometimes you will say goodbye to people. I lost a lot of close friends, but I realized they were just drinking buddies.
Right.
People I thought were best friends. It's like everything gets better when you're sober. Everything. Like I thought I'm not going to be able to sleep without it. I'm not going to, like I said, I went through all those things, and it's like nothing gets worse when you're sober. It's like you're at your worst now. So
Wow.
your relationships will all get better. Nothing will get worse than this. And if it is, it was going to get worse anyways. So you got a better shot at dealing with that. So that's how I always put that.
That's a good point. I like how you worded that. That was awesome. Nothing gets worse than that moment you're in right there. It can't get worse.
You're at your worst.
You're at your worst.
You're at it, dude. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's only up from here.
Right. Anyone else?
What I wanted to mention. Oh, go ahead.
There was 2 instances I'll talk about. One was a previous girlfriend. When I finally got clean, and I met Marz when I was working at Tower City. I was a window clerk for the post office. This lady would come and stand across the lobby. And one day I had the courage to go over to her and say, why are you always staring at me? She said, you don't remember me, do you? I remembered how you treated me. Oh. And I just wanted to see that the change that I see is something that's consistent. And that was one of those moments where you say, man, how much damage did I do that I don't even recognize that I've done? And then at the same time, when 9/11 happened and they evacuated the terminal tower and we came back 2 days later and opened up, there was a gentleman that came and stood in that exact same space to look at me and said, you know what? I'm so glad to see that some things haven't changed. So you can be a change agent for good and bad, and you never know who's watching you and what is going on. So that's why it's beneficial just to try to live a better life as best you can, understand it, and understand that when you know better, you'll do better.
You do
exactly.
Better.
Addiction doesn't want you to know that you're an addict. It survives in denial. You know, the evil one says, I'm going to come between you and your people. But Jesus said, God's people know me by my voice.
Right.
And that's that voice that you hear inside.
Wow.
The devil just comes to kill, seek, and destroy. What I wanted to go back to what you mentioned about your daughter, Lamar. Kids are very smart and observant. Yeah. And they want to do what their parents are doing.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to say is when my son was 7, we were walking down to the rapid and I saw somebody we used to use with, and it's like he was either drunk or high, or like smoking crack or both, whatever. My son knew something was wrong with him. Yeah. And he looked at me and he's like, Mom, what's wrong? I said, honey, he's either drunk or high. He goes, Mom, people that do that, they don't love themselves, do they? I said, honey, you are so smart. We don't. We don't love ourselves. Wow. Can you all agree with that?
Wow.
That's
we
a
didn't
tough
love
statement.
ourselves.
You think about it, that's a tough statement, isn't it? To say you think everyone would say I love myself, but to have
if you don't know how to love, if you don't know how to love, how can you love yourself?
And if you've never been, sometimes people have never been shown the right kind of love.
Exactly.
You know, that makes a difference. I mean,
yes, it does.
You know, go ahead.
Wanted to ask our panel about the we've been here and there. We've been talking about the spiritual aspects and a God aspect, or a God-sized whole, or how your spirituality helped you in recovery, and what the place of it is from our therapist. Is there a place for that in therapy, and how have you noticed it making a difference in people's lives?
I'll tell you what, I've been in therapy for many years, almost throughout my whole adult life. I put myself in 18 because of my boyfriend's addiction, but I was an addict as well. But I was even going to therapy while I was using. Like I wouldn't be high in the session, but I'm in the EMDR therapy now. And it's really helping me heal because our body holds on to all that trauma that we've ever experienced our whole life. I told you about the book, Lamar.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I work with a trauma therapist at my job, and there's another book. I'll have to text it to you. That's about trauma. and how much it affects us. And it's
So
really
what did you say,
important.
Marcy? Was it AMDR you said?
Oh,
Tell me what that is.
EMDR,
Tell me what
eye
that stands for.
movement desensitization,
Okay.
realization.
Thank you.
It's really helping me. I'm still in the healing process. And I said to my clients, even though I got 3 years sober, I said, I still got problems with my thinking. Like, for my room's a clutter bug. Well, I have ADHD and it's real hard for me. I'm big time procrastinator. It's like, it's a long process of change and recovery, but it gets better. And like, I'm still doing the definition of insanity, doing the same things over, expecting a different result. 3 years sober.
Right.
And I tell all my clients this because I want to keep it real with them. Just because you're sober, everything's not going to be sunshines and rainbows. Yes, you're going to have, because I get the seasonal depression. And you could see it on my face when I'm not talking, you know, like I don't feel good or something's wrong because I'm a talker. And for clients who know me a week to notice that is huge. And I says, I'm glad you're seeing me this way because I have 3 years and you could see that I still struggle, but I will not pick up because I'm struggling.
Right.
I just love my job. I just love it.
Are there distractions that keep people from, like, what is, like, do you put something in your mind to say, you know, this is not going to be that moment, I'm not going to do this again? Like when you're sober and you're going through depression or you're going through a bad moment, is it something that you put as a distraction or a replacement? Like, you know, I'm not sure if I'm wording it right, but
well, you know what, Lamar, we throw terms around and don't really understand its impact. Clinical depression and dealing with it is something that's totally different than dealing with addiction. Like I had said earlier, there are so many places that we intersect with other problems that you have to unravel them slowly, one at a time. And we have in this country this thing that we have to fix it all or it's not worth fixing. And now they've got to the point that people just want to erase you off the face of the earth if I don't agree with what you're saying. You know, the reality is it took me so many years to reach that point that I needed to surrender. And now I've been clean longer than I've been getting high, right? So life is a little bit different and you have to continue the process, whether you're trying to find God, whether you're trying to find yourself, whether you're trying to deal with your own pain, that it's not going to be I'm not going back to the way it was. There is no normal, right? I am who I am, and I have to find ways to love myself and love you.
I've noticed that like a lot of 12-step programs and the way that people treat it, those are a lot of my experience in knowing people in recovery and being in a 12-step program. It becomes a spiritual aspect for them. For them, their talk of a higher power and their talk of God in that group, that's almost like a church for them. That's their support group. That's their people. That's where they get their strength and even their spiritual strength from. So I just thought it was interesting that so many of you all are talking about the spiritual aspects and feeling a hole in your heart that can only be filled with God. So
but we have to but you have to understand that it's if you say it out long the way it's supposed to be, it's a God of your understanding. It's not God, because we can all have different views of God, but God as you understand him and as he impacts your life, that person that's always there, that's always on your side, that will always be with you through the hard times and the good times, that recognition of making sure that God is part of your life. And addiction takes God away. Addiction says you're not, if everybody else would just change how they act, I'd be all right. And never be responsible for my own behavior. So
you're blaming other people for what you're doing then, basically.
That's a criminal tactic behavior.
That's a defense that the disease protects itself. You know, some days,
the
today,
ego.
I'm 35 years clean, I still make the decision every day not to get high.
Right.
And some days I wake up and tell my disease, thank you for sharing, keep coming back, more will be revealed, we'll talk about it later. I just have to do it.
I like that.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a little different. I'm not religious. In fact, I was turned off by a lot of that stuff. Like, I know a lot of people there. Well, I'm not alone. And I think a lot of people don't seek the help because they're also turned off by it. I'm a very big believer in the 12-step program, though. I know friends that are in it, and I think it's great. And I'm not a person who talks against it. It just wasn't for me. And I know there's other people out there that are like me, and I like to be a voice for that. We do hear the other side of the 12-step program. You need that, you need this, you need God, you need to, fill the God-shaped hole in your heart. And a lot of people do, and that's great. I wasn't one of those people. And I think that and a lot of us don't talk. A lot of us don't stand up and go, well, that works for a lot of people, most people. It doesn't work for me. And I did try those things, and it didn't fit for me. It didn't work in the way it just didn't work for me. So
thank you for sharing.
Well, Jonathan, you said earlier that you were a little bit. Yeah, Jonathan, you said earlier that you felt like you were a little unusual in that regard, but it may surprise you to learn that when these were collected many years ago, they found that only about 5% of the people who go through the 12-step program find recovery through it. Only about 5%. So the majority of people try it, but it's not for them. You're not unusual in that regard, okay?
Interesting. Yeah, that's a stat I didn't know about.
That is interesting. I never heard that.
And like Greg said, there are so many other ways to get to recovery, and they're not all spiritual ways either.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's why I just like
I knew a man who got.
What was that? What was that, Jonathan?
I was just saying, and I agree, and I just think that a lot of the people like me that found that recovery don't talk because we do get kind of drowned out by the other stuff, like the 12-step. Right. When I was in rehab, that's what they hammer, like, this is what you got to do. These are the steps. This is the thing, and it's like, okay, but I'm not jiving with this, and there were some other people, and a lot of those people just try it and then it doesn't work. But then you go to another program and they kind of tell you the same thing, and it's like, but this isn't jiving with me, and it's just that you don't know your place. And a lot of people think that that's the only thing because that's what's kind of widely known. Yeah, and there's several different types of recoveries. There's a SMART program. There's a SMART recovery. There's a lot of people that aren't religious that find the SMART recovery very good that we don't talk about. There are people, there are agnostic and atheist groups that get together and do this stuff. So it's like, for just the people on the call that aren't religious, that do get turned off on that stuff. It's okay. And it's okay to have that dialogue, and it's okay there is a place and there is recovery without having to do, there's several different types of recovery. Like Ash said, there isn't one size fits all. We're all different. We all are different.
Andrew, I wanted to ask you.
I just got a call and now I lost a lot of sound. How do I fix it?
Go back to the camera. Your camera's on. You should be good. You can't hear me?
You just fine.
We hear you.
Faintly.
Huh.
Look at your screen. Do you see the cameras on your screen?
Yep.
Did it reset your volume?
Yeah, it might have to turn your volume. Try turning your volume up again on your phone, maybe. Are you on your phone?
It is all the way up. Hold on.
You might have to log back out and log in.
It's up. Everything's up. God dang it. This happens when I get a call all the time.
You wanna disconnect and then come back in?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do that right now.
Okay, no problem.
So,
we'll bring you back up.
Andrew, I have a question for you. So do you find that there are people of your clients that respond differently to different treatments, or what's your approach to this when you help people?
Well, anytime you go for individual sessions with any type of substance use counselor, they should be doing what's called patient-centered counseling.
Okay.
So we develop your treatment plan based on what your needs and preferences are.
Okay.
And what we identify what is better for you. So the group therapy thing is more of an educational aspect, whereas the individual counseling is where you're talking about what bothers you one-on-one and some educational aspects on it. the majority of the therapy tools that I use, or the best therapy tool I use, is what's called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
Essentially, what we're talking about when we're talking about grounding techniques, thought stopping techniques, challenging your negative thoughts, and things like that. I do want to back up to the religious aspect. The majority of my clients that come through, even when I was working for the local agency that I worked for, which was a Christian-based organization. The majority of my clients were not Christian. They were not religious at all, didn't identify with any type of spirituality. So one of the first things I had to do was identify what spirituality meant for them. Because that is an aspect of the treatment program that we try to encourage. So identifying for that, identifying religion, spirituality for them, and helping them understand that to fill that hole and that need.
Yeah.
Another thing that we always taught that, when you're going through recovery, is you have to be selfish. You have to put yourself first above anything else.
Okay.
So,
that makes sense.
100%.
Welcome back, Marcy.
Well put.
I'm back.
I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank everyone for get the guests out there listening. If there's anything at all that you to have to share, feel free to comment if you would like to. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. One of the things I also want to ask, like the counselors, when you're going through these steps with the people that are coming to you for help, what are some of the things that the alerts that you see that they're looking for this help? Not that they came to, but there's red flags that come up to say if they're serious, if they're not serious. How can you work with other people that's willing to help? Like, what are the red flags like that stand out? If I'm making sense with my question. When a person is coming to you for help, and you can tell if they're serious or not, if it's real, and then when you go all in with them or you don't go all in, or how does that work?
We try to go all in with them no matter what. The majority of my clients that come in are court ordered.
Okay.
So that means a lot of them don't want treatment. They're just going through the motions to get what they need to be done to get out of the court system.
How do you notice that? What are the things that you notice within that?
I just get a feeling. I don't know. It's hard to describe. Yeah. Even though I don't have qualifications, I got that lived experience. Yeah. I'm not like a substance abuse counselor. I'm a recovery coach. Yeah. I don't know. Some people are honest with me, and I tell them I appreciate that. Yeah. But I say, because the one guy says, I'm going to smoke weed when I leave, and the lady says, I'm going to drink. And I said, that's fine. I can't change you. I says, but if you keep having consequence after consequence, you might want to take a look at yourself. And that's all I say, because I know I can't change them.
You can't measure that, Marz. It would be very frustrating and would stop you from putting a wholehearted attempt, because the individual has to draw their line of what their bottom is, and you can't do that for them. If they're not going to recover for themselves, whatever they're trying is going to be a challenge and may not work. And so those who are and I appreciate what the counselors and the pastors do is just give the best help they can for the situation and let God take care of the results. Because all we have to do is just continue to give them that hope shot. For many years right there on West 25th had been this brick wall that says there is hope.
Yeah. Yes.
There is hope.
There is.
And that's all we have to do is continue to feed people. There is hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I asked the question because I'm that type of person that go all in with people. And you know me for a while. I go all in to help people. And I think others look at me like, you're just so gullible. And I'm not gullible. It's just the fact that I want to help. And that's why I asked about the red flags, because I never look at time being wasted. Even when I'm helping someone who's not interested, I don't look at time I look at it was time that was valuable, that was utilized properly. But then when you're discussing it with other people, they say, they weren't going to change. I say, but it's not about they weren't going to change. It's the fact that I let them know that I'm there for them.
Exactly.
I'm there for them. And that's why I asked the red alerts, because the red flags, because you can see them, but you know that you're there for a purpose. And that
do.
And people that I've had experience with in the past, they've always known to come back. They will come back because they trust you.
Right.
You know, and
Yes.
Well, Lamar, I think to answer your question, I'm not a counselor, so I'm not the expert, but I'll tell you that a lot of addicts, you wouldn't know it. They walk around with us every day and hide it very, very well. You know, there's people who are very functioning with it. I was for a very, very long time. People were shocked when they found out. I was like, are you serious? You have any idea how bad I was? So there's a lot of people you can't really tell. And if you can, I mean, that's why I think that it's great when people who are in recovery become counselors, because they can. It's just you get that intuition. You can kind of just I think one of the best counselors are people who have gone through it themselves, you know.
Right.
And
Exactly.
They were the most valuable thing for me, because it's like, you've been there. So yes, I want to talk to you. You know exactly what I'm going through.
Right.
And so for somebody who doesn't notice that, there's just, I think a lot of people also don't even realize they're addicts. You know, I think that's what addiction is. It lies to you for a long time. There's a long time like, I can quit this. And it's like, I didn't even know for a long time. Even with cigarettes, I remember I was smoking a cigarette with my buddy outside of work. I was just bumming cigarettes. And I was like, I'm not addicted. He goes, you bummed like once, almost every shift you're bumming from. He goes, dude, you're hooked. That's what it does to you. And it was I was like, oh no. That's what addiction does, is it sneaks up on you. You think you got it in control. You think you got it. It's like, no, it's not. I'm not addicted to this. And it's you don't even know. And it's like, oh no. That blew my mind. He looked at me, he goes, that's what I thought. And when I hooked me, I didn't realize, and I was out buying cigarettes, and I still was telling me I wasn't addicted. Wow. So it's hard to even tell sometimes, Lamar. Anyways.
No,
I'm no expert, but
no, that was good. I mean, that's what this is about, just a conversation. And Darrin said he'll be right back a little bit. He had to go take care of something. But as we move on, like I said, this pandemic was something that really bothered me and my concern for other people, because I was just reading the statistics of what was going on, and how can we and I look at it as a nation, as a country here in the United States. I don't even know the right question to ask for this, but how can we try to contain or try to fix this issue that we have in our country with addiction? With not just, I guess the addiction I'm looking at more so are the drug addictions, the illegal drug addictions. We saw like these opioid use over the last 3 or 4 years get so crazy. What do we do? I mean, you guys have been there, you've lived the life. What can we do better to fix this?
Spread
Lamar,
mental health awareness. Counseling.
Bingo.
Lamar, I'm going to address this from a point of view that probably is not going to make me friendly with anybody, or I'm not going to make friends with this one, but I live in a county that was one of the worst, not only in the state, but in the U.S. A county where we were whenever they did the surveys in the state of Ohio, I think we were the number 3 county for drug addiction, abuse, heroin, for hospitalizations for it, all kinds of things. Okay, this was basically just about 8 or 9 years ago. And we have moved to where we are down at the bottom of the scale in the state of Ohio. Out of 88 counties, I think we're like number 53 now.
Okay.
And that's just in 8 years. How did we get from being one of the worst to one of the better ones? Well, part of what happened was that we elected judges, prosecutor, and we have police chiefs in the 3 major towns in this county, all of whom pretty much got on the same mindset that the best detox is jail, that the best treatment program is incarceration. That they all pretty much agreed on that. And you know what? All the drug abuse counselors were saying, you guys are wrong. Give us a chance. Give us the funding necessary. They said, nope, we're just going to be hard on the dealers and hard on the abusers. And that's what they continued to do. And I think, that's not been a very popular stance to take, but it has moved us from one of the worst to one of the counties in the state of Ohio. On the other hand, is it the best way to go? I don't think so. I don't agree with their philosophy about this. I don't think the problem is all we did was make it a geographical cure. We sent the drug dealers away to the next counties over.
Right.
Yeah.
We made it somebody else's problem.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Masking the symptoms, away, but we didn't solve it. We did not solve it. We did not solve the problem.
So here's my perspective. And it's as simple as when we decide that we're going to look at facts as facts and quit pretending like it don't exist or it's something other than, when we can get honest about the reality that we live in, that process of addiction will reveal itself, and you'll be able to nip some things in the bud just by education. My daughter understands her predisposition to addiction because she knows the facts about her dad and her mom. And
my son does too.
We have to do it generationally, so that I may not see the results, but 4 generations down the line, we have it set up so that the solutions are in order and they don't have to go through the struggles that we had to go through.
Right. So the education and the being honest with your own people, your own family, starting in your own household.
Right.
So that is good, because I mean, people out. I'm not saying this for everyone, that we don't, because our parents did it, we do it, because you could do it from meeting friends. Like Jonathan said, he was 21 when he started. But so the education is the key point. So from an educational standpoint, where can we get more information? How can we get this word out more about drug addiction, the education on it, and all that? I know there's websites and everything, but what are some of the sources that we can put in our links here? And also, by the way, we do have, I think you all can have the access to chat, I think. So if you have any resource, if you could please put them in the chat, that'd be great.
Well, you know what, Lamar, just I think about a month ago, where I work, Oriana House, we have the first, it's called the Diversion Center.
Mm-hmm.
SAMHSA, it was real hard, but we got accepted. And it's for people who get picked up for mental health or being high or drunk on the streets. Instead of taking them right to jail, they're going to take them to the diversion center.
Gotcha.
So many police officers came and thought this was such a great idea, because they don't need to be in jail. They need help.
Yeah.
And granted, you know, everybody may not want that help. You know, they have to want it. Yeah. But it's a step in the right direction instead of sending them to jail, where there's going to be more trauma in jail with, you know, gangs and people being raped and whatnot. And so it's a chance. And then we have the CBCF, the Judge Nancy McDonald Center on 34th and Broadway. I was working there. Okay. These people are sent there. It's a 24-hour lockdown facility. These people are sent there in lieu of being sent to prison.
Gotcha.
So I worked with some guys there, and I learned a trick from Dr. Mark Sanders. He's in Chicago. I believe he's a psychologist. I did on May 5th training about stimulant disorders and the treatment and recovery, and he said that they're showing positive results of having a peer support in the community when they're released from treatment, when they're released from jail, when they're, you know, released from a halfway house, that's showing. And then there's also, I mean, he said a lot. I could go on and say a lot, but his name's Dr. Mark Sanders. He's in Chicago, Illinois. And they said with the young ones, it was all about getting a reward. And I could send it to you, Lamar, when I get to work on Monday. It's really good information. They even talked about the Native Americans.
Okay.
Oh my God, it was such a great treatment.
Okay.
So
Andrew, I think Andrew had a comment. You had one, Andrew?
Yeah. So I come at this from different aspects. Obviously, I'm a criminal justice professor at the local college. So we're learning that the criminal justice field is taking a different look and approach on substance use in general, because we've been locking them up. The tough on crime laws is not working. The drug war is not working. So they're taking a different look, and we're teaching a different way of identifying and the help that these people need, that addicts need, obviously. So the court systems in general, once the courts are on board, they're actually doing what's called a drug court. And anybody that's in the substance use issues, they go through that drug court, and the first thing that the judge will order for them is the treatment, and that's the reason why they come and see us.
Okay.
So, but we're training the police officers and corrections officers and probation officers to not be scared and not stigmatize treatment, especially with those that are using Suboxone or methadone to try to help them get off. And that's the biggest problem with some of the people, is they're stigmatized because they're using the methadone. Like, I work in a methadone clinic right now, and they're being told by their family, that they're just trading one drug for another. Well, no,
I heard that too.
This is a tool. This is the tool that's going to be in their toolbox to be able to use for them to help alleviate those symptoms that are causing the addiction. That's why you do the counseling on the side too. I'll go along with that. And I saw in the chat from one of your viewers that they were asking about do we address the physical sides of it, and I think it was talking about more of the exercise and nutrition. And yes, as therapists and counselors, we do emphasize the you gotta start eating better, you gotta start taking care of yourself better, and that's including exercise and eating the correct foods. One of the things that I like to make sure they know about is omega-13 fatty acids. And they have showed in studies that it helps repair memory loss issues. And anybody's in addiction, they've had issues with memory loss. So that's one of the things I tell my clients is, start using omega-13 fatty acids. Start taking them on a regular basis. You'll start noticing.
Okay.
Right, but not to get the kind like at the like drug marts or CVS or Walgreens. Like, get it from a reputable site, because I see a holistic doctor, and she said those ones. And plus, my other holistic doctor, I had problems with my gut, and my gut was unhealthy. We have more neurotransmitters in our gut than we do in our brain.
Yeah.
So when our gut's unhealthy, we're fatigued a lot. We gain weight.
Yeah. Well, flaxseed is one of the best things for omega-3s. Flaxseed.
Yes.
So you put that on your food, your salmon, put it in your smoothies. I use flaxseed all the time.
It is.
What's that? Wild caught salmon. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You got to emphasize the wild caught one, because if it's caged, and then you're quite getting the right one. So.
You're not getting what you need. You get what you need out of that. So we got like 30 minutes left in the show, and we like to do this thing called the bottom line, and where we go around and you give your bottom line about today's show, and then me and Darrin will close it out. So I want to start off with Greg. What's your bottom line for today, man?
The bottom line: recovery is possible. That you can change your life if you change your behavior. My problem was not what I did, it was why I did what I did. And when I addressed my attitudes, thoughts, and behaviors, I could stop using. I lost the desire to use, and I found a new way to live. And that's the hope for today.
That's great.
This is the hope for tomorrow.
Wow, that is awesome. What's his name?
Right. This is Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Oh, so cute. So cute. Oh my goodness.
And he spelled it Jeffree. Jeffrey.
Awesome.
Oh.
So what about you, Jonathan? What's your bottom line, man? You're muted.
Sorry. The bottom line for me, I guess, for this is just, it is possible, man. I went to sleep every night thinking I wasn't going to wake up the next day. That's how bad I got. And I didn't know if I was ever going to get off of it. And it is possible. And there are different ways. Don't get turned off by, because you only know you've only heard one story and you're like, that doesn't really fit my narrative. I don't really want that for my recovery. Or there is other avenues to find, and there's, religious, non-religious, and
right.
and you can love yourself again, and it does get better. The other side is much better. Where you're at now is the worst it'll ever be. And
Right.
when I was in rehab, there was a lady who had a lot of mental issues, and she was also DTing with me, and I was hallucinating, and I'm seeing things come out of her, and so things are crazy. And she made this for me. We were doing adult coloring books because that's what we were doing in rehab. And she gives me this, and I just found this again, and I'm going to go get this framed. Today is going to be awesome because I'm not using it anymore. Yeah. So this lady just gave this to me. I don't know her. I still don't know her name, but and I lost this for a while, and then I almost was in tears when I found it. I didn't even know I hung on to it.
Wow. That's no coincidence.
No, yeah, and it's it can, your life on the other side is going to be better, and however you find help, just realize that you're not a user your whole life. You're like, I don't know what life's like, without this. It's like, well, you just forgot. You just need to remember again.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
Marcy,
today will be awesome.
So what's your bottom line, Marcy?
Oh gosh. The bottom line is a lot of us addicts deal with guilt. It's the number one pretty much thing to deal with. It's a tough subject to deal with, but we have to forgive ourselves and we have to forgive others. And don't get me wrong, it's not easy, and you have to work at it every day. But yes, there is hope. You can get through this. I never thought I would ever stop smoking weed. Here I am. I don't do that. I don't even like the smell of it today. But I don't know. Deal with those demons and skeletons in the closet first, I guess, and be honest. You got to be honest with yourself. And there are other ways to recovery. I was taught in the beginning, you got to do 90 and 90. And like I said, I heard people say, meetings trigger me. So that's not going to work for them. That's going to set them up for failure. We want to set people up for success. Yeah. And so we need to look at each individual and need to find out what their triggers are and what is going to work for them. Everybody's journey is different. We cannot say one way is going to work. And I learned that in my peer support training in 2018. There are many different ways to recover. We just need to find out what that is and do it.
Right. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to Andrew. What's your bottom line for today? This conversation.
So the bottom line is you got to make that first step. If you're watching this video and you're learning about it and you're actually in active addiction, that means you're in the pre-contemplation and contemplation stage. That means you're actually thinking about making that step and moving towards recovery. To make that step, open up and call for help, and call for your local counseling agency or AA support group, NA support group. Once you make that step, like she said earlier, you got to open up and be honest with yourself first before you be honest with anybody else. And you don't have to go it alone, but you have to leave behind those people, places, and things that were part of your addiction, and leave them for the people that are in your recovery group and support group. Once you do that, you realize it gets much easier after that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Ash, what's your bottom line?
Yeah, since you put me last, I'm going to say that a lot of it comes to what all the rest of you have said, that, you've got to trust the system, trust the people, things like that. But I come down to the words of a very wise man who wrote about 2,000 years ago that faith, hope, and love are living. They're still alive. They're still there. And the greatest of these is love. But to get to the love, you've got to have faith in things you can't even see. Like, for example, when I'm flying, I've got to have faith that the air that I can't see is going to hold me up, right?
Right.
And you've got to have hope that there is a better future ahead. Even if you can't see that future right now, it's going to get better, and recovery is possible. Yeah. And eventually that'll lead to you're loving yourself and you're loving others as well. And whatever you've lost in love, it'll all come back to you tenfold. So faith, hope, and love are still alive, and keep those alive and get the help you need If one thing doesn't work, get something else that works.
Thank you.
Awesome. So what'd you say, Darrin? What's your bottom line, man?
Wow. This was awesome. This was a great show. Thank you all for being here. And I don't think there's anything I could add to any of that. I mean, this was interesting. I learned a lot, and I really appreciate everyone being here. All of our guests commenting at home and listening in. I hope that if you do hear this, to echo what Andrew said, that you do seek help, and that if you're hearing this and that you're having an issue, please call someone.
Yeah. You remember that really bad girlfriend you finally got rid of, and you really needed her, or she broke up with you, and you were like so heartbroken, and you thought there was no life after that. And guess what? It's better now, ain't it?
Yeah.
It's much better. You realize in hindsight that, man, that girl was worthless, or that guy was worthless. I don't know why I ever stuck with him. Why did I ever waste any time being upset about it? It's like, it's the same thing. You look back, and my life has just progressively gotten better and better. I have savings for the first time in my life. You know, my relationships with women are better. My relationships with my friends are better. You know, you're at your worst point when you're using. You're not your best self, and it's like, find a way to get back to that, man. And you know, you may be feeling down on yourself and all that, like I was. Because I used to be somebody people looked up to, and then I was now looking at people were picking me up, dragging me places, and I now back to the other place. If I was using, I'd be dead. So it gets better.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm going to just thank all my guests. Also, my bottom line is that, don't be afraid to seek help, regardless of your addiction. Every addiction is different, but the results are the same, which is, the results are the same regardless of the addiction. So you have people here that's on this show that are telling you the same thing. They've been through it. They are success stories. And we have a whole panel of success stories here today. And so go ahead, Marcy. What were you going to say?
One more thing. I learned when you're depressed, you're in the past. When you're anxious, you're in the future. It's so important to stay in the present moment. And I learned a grounding technique I could share with you, Lamar.
Sure. You go ahead and share it now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So you put your left hand on, you put your opposite hands on each knee, like right hand on left knee, left hand on right knee. Sit up straight, deep breathing, deep all the way out breath. And you imagine like either anchors or something like grounding into the ground. And it's a grounding technique, and it really helps you stay in the present moment.
Wow.
And it's very helpful for me.
Okay. Awesome. And if you all wouldn't mind, like I said, if you can leave, what is that? I hear having an awesome boss helps. Oh, okay. See, this just to give some transparency here. Me and Jonathan work together, and Jeffrey is our manager. So, and I do want to thank.
That's true. That's true.
Very humble manager.
Yeah,
you're right. I had two awesome bosses. That's true.
So I want to thank Jeffrey.
He is a good boss.
Jeffrey's awesome, and I thank him because he's on our show every week, and he was our guest. I think it was last week. He was one of our week before last, was it? No, it was last week. He was one of our guests. So I want to thank him for just being a support for us in this, and he's a great guy. So any other last words? I know we'll be closing out soon, and.
We need to do this again. I enjoyed this.
I want to share one last thing.
Sure.
And this is my perspective. No one on this earth is blessed with life but for God. And each of us is a handcrafted original masterpiece created for God's glory. You have to find a way to get connected with your creator. Period.
Okay.
Yep, you're right.
Okay. Anything, Darrin? Any final words?
I mean,
that's it.
You guys are leaving me speechless. I mean, this is all great. So I can't possibly do better than that. You guys, this was a great discussion. So once again, thank you.
Do this again.
All right.
We're gonna thank our guests, and me and Darrin are gonna stay on after this, but we're gonna thank our guests, and we hope you all have a great day. And
thank you so much again.
Stay going forward on your road to recovery.
Go Brown.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Super Bowl bound, right?
Thanks.
Oh man, get him out of there. Okay, there you go. Man, that was awesome, Darrin.
That was one of our best discussions, I think. That was great.
It was. I mean, when you can have a discussion about help, when you can help others, and see others who's been through help, I mean, it's always going to be a great discussion because we live in a world that has so much lost hope at times. I mean, you just think about it. We just went. We remember when we had the counselors on, the mental health counselors, and we're talking about how people
back in November. Go ahead.
Yeah, they were talking about how people felt lost during the beginning of this pandemic time, and well, think about it from an addict's perspective. It doesn't have to be a pandemic, and they feel hopeless. They feel like they're never going to get out of it, and then you have these recovery stories like we saw today, where these people are telling you how they went through it. It was tough, but they came through it. I just want to see that next person. It would be great, to see somebody just in our timeline telling you their recovery stories. I think it's just so awesome. I think they should be celebrated because
absolutely.
Life is already tough, and you just get caught in this web of I guess confusion. I guess when you're on drugs, I'm not sure. I've never been addicted, but I just look at it from that outside looking in, a web of confusion.
I can really understand during this past year how people would have resorted to such things. I mean, you're at home, maybe you lost your job, maybe you're separated from family, maybe you can't even see your family, maybe you have elderly parents that you can't see, that you can't help take care of. So I can understand that isolating kind of feeling. If all those things were removed from your life, your support group, if you had a live support group and then all of a sudden that was taken away from you pretty suddenly, I mean, it's a big thing. And so I don't know. How do you know if we're making progress in the war against drugs? How do we know? Are we?
I don't know.
Is it just getting worse? What's the answer for us? I know you guys talked about that a little bit, but
you think about it, it keeps changing. I mean, like Marcy was saying about, they're using K2, which is a synthetic form of drugs, and it's sad that it keeps evolving, So think about it like this. Now you have it where, and I'll take marijuana to a different, because we're looking at something that's being legal in different states. I'm looking at now just the illegal drugs that are illegal, and we look at the way they're still accessible. No matter how hard you fight this war on drugs, it's always accessible.
Yeah.
Until we get to a point where we stop bringing them into our country, that's where it starts at. Is bringing them in, and there's a person there's people that are requesting it. They're paying for it. They're supplying it. But it's the little people that are being hurt. It's the ones that are getting hooked on the drug. It's the little dealer on the street that's dealing the drugs. It's not the one that's bringing the drugs in here. They're still living life like normal. And until we can really get real with ourselves as a country and say we need to stop it from that perspective, it's not going to stop, in my opinion. We just got to we just got to have people educated to be aware and not want to do it, to have that strength. And it's hard. I mean, people deal with it in different ways, and that's what they resort to.
So Andy gave us a bunch of links, so I posted those in our comments section.
Thank you, Andy.
Great stuff here, and so thank you very much for giving that to us.
Yeah.
Of course, AA, we got to include that as well.
Yeah.
So what do we have for this coming week then? What do you think? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Let me work on something. Because this was awesome, man. This was awesome. And I just thank my guests, because I guess you think about it, it's kind of hard to be you're vulnerable. Say it that way. It's very vulnerable to come out on a show like this.
I was thinking that myself as they were talking. I was thinking like, man, I don't know if I would be comfortable sharing what they're sharing. But go ahead, and then I'll continue.
Oh, the vulnerable part is that you're exposing yourself to the public. Some people never knew you lived this life.
Yeah.
And you're exposing it. And The other side of that is I applaud them because the boldness and the courage to do that is saying that you're willing to do what it takes to help the next person.
Yeah.
And that's a person with a good heart.
Mm.
Regardless of your path to this point, it was always there to have a good heart. If
Okay.
you shame, what does Willie say? If you shame to what you did, you never should have did it. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Willie. You're absolutely right. But that that vulnerability is what hold people back from their testimony. That vulnerability is what holds people back from, seeking that change. They feel like they're stuck and they don't want to be exposed. But like I said, I thank my guest, man, because
Being
that was really emotional for me sitting back because I've seen so many people go
okay.
through it. It really was because I saw people go down this road, man.
Okay.
I've known people that have died. I've known people who have been killed in the game of drugs. I've seen
Wow.
people in prison because of drugs.
Okay.
I've seen it destroy households. I had a young man, actually two young men that one of them I haven't talked to um, since this one episode. This was back in maybe 2000, 2001. There was a young guy, I had recording studios, and there was a young man who used to come to my studio all the time with some other friends. And at one point, he started coming by himself, just hanging out with me, just talking. And, it was like me being a mentor to him. Well, come to find out, this young man, he was hooked on drugs, but he had contemplated suicide many a times. And he had told me that life was so bad for him that he was definitely going to kill himself. This time he's going to do it for real. And I remember being on a fishing trip, and he had told me what date he was going to do this. And that date, during that time period, I was out of town. And when I got back into town, I remembered, I was like, this was the day. And I called him up. I said, and all I knew him by was his nickname, was Lucky. Imagine that, his nickname was Lucky. That's the only name I knew him by. And I called him up, and he said, "No, man, I ain't do it." He said, "I'm actually enrolled in school right now." And he thanked me. It was just that summer, June, July, and August of the 2000 or 2001, I can't remember, that I spent time with this young man and changed his mind from killing himself.
Wow.
And I've just see stories like that. I got another guy that we're still cool to this day. At 17, he started hanging out with me.
Okay.
And, he was in the gangs and drugs and all this stuff. And he's now a sober guy who's in ministry. So it's I've been in these encounters with people, although I never lived that life, but for some reason they're placed in my life for some reason. And my heart is to help people, man. And this is another one of those times where I'm hoping I'm helping somebody.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
so a couple of different things. I think that like being vulnerable and sharing like that if you're in a group where people are in the same situation as you, can be very empowering for you. Being authentic can be also very liberating for somebody. If you're like coming clean, so to speak, can be very a huge weight off your shoulders. You say, this is who I am. This is what I am. This is what I've been doing. And so, being honest about it can actually feel good about it. So I think that's part of the thing that I think that people who have been addicted to something, who are in recovery, I think would affirm. So in Mark asked a question, can you be addicted to other things? Andrew answered that for us in
Well, that was mainly
in our
depression.
private chat. Yes, you can be addicted to other things, other emotions. You can be addicted to a feeling. So yeah, I mean, some people get addicted to the feeling of depression because maybe they get sympathy from somebody. Maybe they don't know any other way to be.
Yes.
So I'm not an expert in that, but yeah, I would say that you can be, yes.
That's kind of different. I never thought about it that way. You see
It is
people
different,
that are like chronic. I would say they're in that mood all the time, a depressed mood. It's like, do you want to be there? And maybe I'm not saying nobody wants to be depressed, but we know depression is
you don't
take our country.
consciously want to be depressed. You never
Right.
tell yourself, "Oh, I want to be depressed."
Right.
You might not get to that point, but if you don't know another way to be,
Yeah.
it might be scary to like not be in that place that you're used to. At
Yeah.
least you're used to that. You know what I'm
And
saying?
that becomes an addiction.
Yeah, it can be.
Wow.
Go ahead.
And
I interrupted you. So.
no. It was just something that was just I never thought about an emotion being addictive.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
I
I
didn't
mean,
realize that.
another thing about what I noticed today is that there's a lot of people who had addiction issues in the past who have gone into helping other people. You know, I
Yeah.
don't know the stats behind it, but it must be very, very high. Those who have had some experience in something, be it being abused, um, you know, being in certain situations, will want you to work in those fields.
Yeah.
So it must be very high that people
Yeah.
that go into this work had some sort of experience in their lives, either with themselves or a
Yeah.
close family member, I would say.
I was in this I went through training for being a first responder, and I was in this class, and I forgot where it was at. It was in downtown Cleveland. I was, while I was teaching, I volunteered to be a first responder for our location, so to go to this training. And while we were in this training, I came to realize that there was a lot of people from the LGBTQ community that was in this training program,
Okay.
and I didn't. I kind of understood it, but didn't understand. They were talking about the emotional things that they're going through that led them to addiction.
Okay.
And that was like something I just didn't realize that those emotions, because of um, for that group of people, that led them to the drugs. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. It was like maybe 3/4 of the classroom was in this position, and I was like, wow. And I'm sitting there like the outsider,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was like, then my heart went out again. Because I'm always looking to help, and it's like I just sat there and listened to these stories, one
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
next, after the next, after the next, of how emotion drives you to, your to drugs, man. So,
So
man, we gotta.
Andrew kind of answered Mark's question here. Those who are stuck in an emotion find it hard to pull out of that. Those
Wow,
who have anger management issues might get a rush from being angry. Bottom
get a
line, if
high
you don't
from.
know how to address your depression, you don't have to do it alone. Contact
Yeah,
local mental health agency, talk to a counselor.
yeah,
Yeah, one of the things in our discussion today that I was noticing is that of how depression, or one of the things I learned today was ADHD has a high percentage of people who become alcoholics. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
So I learned so much today about things that I didn't necessarily know.
Yeah,
So it was very good,
yeah,
very interesting
that was
to
good, man.
listen to.
So we got to work on a show for next week, man. We're behind the 8 ball. We got 7 days. We got to get something good, man.
Well, something will happen in the world, right?
What's your plan? What you got going on for the weekend?
Well, we were going to have a birthday party for my daughter, who's turning 16 in a few days.
Happy birthday!
Her birthday is actually on let's see, 3 days would be Tuesday.
Yeah.
But she had the COVID vaccine yesterday at Drug Mart here in town,
Okay.
and so she's not feeling very well. So
Oh man.
we were going to go. It's a nice day. We were going to go out and have a picnic outside with my parents, but that's not going to happen. So I don't know what we're going to do. I probably have to do some yard work. So.
Well, I did cut some grass yesterday, and I'm going to see how my body responds. Every week my back and my legs. So yesterday was a good day for me, man. But this morning I woke up kind of sore.
Okay. Do a recap of the show we already did? Maybe.
And I'm going to contact you this week, Willie. I might get a one-on-one with you during the week. Get a conversation with you about some of these topics.
Okay.
But yeah, man.
Have you been watching the NBA at all?
I watched last night, man. I was hoping Dallas was going to pull it out last night, man. And
So was I.
Man, they choked.
I really like Luka Doncic.
Yeah, it's good, man. And
he's man, he can pour it in, can he?
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard was in rare form last night. I mean, he went back to that championship mode last night at the end of the game and pulled them. What was it? 40? Was it?
It should be an interesting Game 7. That's been an entertaining series. And so no home team has won yet.
So what do you think about LeBron getting kicked out of the playoffs now?
Well, to be honest, I'm actually not that surprised. I mean, everyone was like picking the Lakers and this and that. The Lakers are going to come out of the West, but the Lakers have had a lot of problems this year, and it's centered on their injuries.
Yeah.
Without Andrew, without AD there.
Yeah.
they are an average team.
Yeah, they are.
So, and they didn't seem like they knew what to do, like the role players. I mean, LeBron did his thing, and everyone else that's supposed to be good players, I don't know where they were coming from. I
Yeah.
mean, why wasn't what's his face playing? The guy that they traded from Cleveland. I forget his name.
Traded from Cleveland.
Yeah, the rebounder, Drummond. Why was he not
Drummond.
playing
Yeah,
last
I
night? He
don't
wasn't.
know.
Was he
I don't
injured
know.
last time? I was like,
I
oh,
don't
wait a minute.
know.
I'm checking the box score
I haven't
because I
heard.
was doing other things.
Yeah,
And
I
it was
didn't
like,
even
well, wait a
check.
minute.
I
He's
didn't even
got
check the
0
stats.
minutes.
Yeah, I didn't even check the
And
stats
it's
on
like, so I'm
Say
actually not that
Joe
surprised.
said AD is trash. Well, you know, Barkley
He's
said
not
he was
trash, but he's injury
he's
prone,
injury prone. Yeah.
and as a big man, I don't know. His future is in question.
I'm looking forward to the Milwaukee and Brooklyn series.
That's going to be great.
It's gonna
That's
be a
going to
good
be a
series.
great
That should be the
series.
conference finals right there.
Milwaukee has been really, they looked really impressive in the first round.
Yeah.
But you know, the Nets might take it all this year.
I think people are really hating on the Nets because they're saying they built this team of stars and
Oh, sure.
you know,
I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Nets, to be honest, because I don't really
yeah.
like Kyrie. I think he's
You
off
know,
in left field, and
I was a big Kyrie fan until he left Cleveland, man. When he left Cleveland, I think he left because of ego and pride, and he showed that he couldn't do it alone.
he's
He
got some
realized now,
personality issues,
yeah,
and
he thought he could do it by himself, but now he realized he can't. You had a good thing if he had stayed in Cleveland, there was a good thing going on in Cleveland with him and LeBron.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you know, ego and pride, man, will destroy you. You know, so we've seen it over and over again. I mean, think about it. You think about it. James Harden was with Oklahoma City when they had Russell
Yeah, what if
Westbrook.
those three stayed together?
Man,
We're talking dynasty, don't you think?
but pride got in the
But the
way.
pride got in the way. They couldn't keep them all. They couldn't keep
Yeah,
them paid. See, the
but
Utah
James,
Jazz. I think the Utah Jazz might
yeah,
come out of the West.
they look good,
They're
man.
extremely well put together, balanced team,
Yeah,
and that's as good as pick as any.
yeah,
I mean,
it is.
the Jazz and the Nets right now are my picks, but who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah,
Things can
sounds good.
change.
Yeah, sounds good, man. So I'm about to go find me some breakfast, man. I'm hungry.
Okay.
So we catch you next week. We're
All
gonna
right.
catch you next week right here on The Bottom Line with Darrin Harvey, the D-Man, and me, Lamar Dillingham, Marz.
Thank you for the support of the show. Don't
Mhm.
forget, if you're on YouTube, to subscribe.
Yep. See you later.